Click. So good morning, afternoon, good evening, different places in the world that we're dialing in from, and welcome to Global Community Chats and the connection today as we explore all things mindsets in the world that is VUCA, BANI, and all sorts of other acronyms that we can throw into the mix. I'm Mark, the VP of Sales and Delivery based in New Zealand in a place called VUCA, and my co-host is Corey. Corey, I'll hand over to you to say hi to the team.
Hi, everyone. Chief Leadership Officer based in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Excellent. Thank you. And in a moment, of course, our hostess with the mostest in Jan will be in the hot seat, engaging with us in all sorts of meaningful conversation. Before we do, we're going to have a crack at creating some real engagement utilizing Menti, because it's confidential and it works really well for creating engagement for larger groups. So we'll see how technologically savvy we all are as we have a crack at using Menti. You can either be flash and scan the QR code to get rocking and rolling on your mobile phone, or you can just do the old www.menti.com on your laptop on a different screen and then pop in the code. So we'll get everyone to do that and do a thumbs up so we know people are rocking and rolling. And then we'll tee up a couple of quick questions, not in terms of where you're dialing in, but more around the weather. Being an Englishman who loves talking about the weather is a nice thing. So I was pleased that you put that into the run sheet today, Corey. So hopefully Menti's rolling for people, working nice and simply for you. And I'll pop us onto the first poll, which nice and simply put is, what's the weather doing in your part of the world? So bear with me for a second as I try and get my screen to allow me to do what it's meant to do. Stop sharing for a second and reshare. Let's get Menti to happen. Come on, Menti, wake up. There we go. Right, Menti's rolling. Obviously, my computer's decided to time out for me, which is nice and helpful. Hopefully you can see it now. So a word to describe, nice word to describe the weather in your part of the world. And thankfully for me, it's actually sunny for once here in New Zealand, despite plenty of rain that Jan got to experience when she was on a visitation recently. Drizzle, dark, stunning, glorious, hot and sticky. Love it. Keep them coming. Nice. And what we're going to do next is get you thinking about the hats that you are wearing today. So hopefully just one hat. And there's a few categories here that you can pop in your reflections and answers to. Keep those weather situations coming through. This isn't a weather report. The hats that we're wearing. So there's a few options here: practitioner coach, organizational sponsor or stakeholder, consultant, or another, a hat that hasn't been put on the list to describe the hat that you're wearing today as you come into the call. We've got a bit of a sense then of who's who in the zoo, who's live on the call with us. If you don't know, that's okay. And obviously I'm not wearing a hat today particularly, so. Awesome. Keep those coming in nice and clear. There's a couple of and others. Awesome stuff. Nice. I'll stop share for a moment and just remind us of the purpose of today's call. So our time together is have a chance to connect. We'll have some polls, an opportunity to learn from Jan, to learn from one another, and to engage with the conversation that's live and in the room. In terms of the time together, there will be an opportunity a little bit later on for some Q&A. So do keep yourself curious and primed to ask some questions later as ideas come up. Make a note as you go along. I tend to find the best form of memory comes in a pen and a piece of paper. So do capture your thoughts as you go through and any questions, and we can tee those up with Jan a little bit later. To start us off, I'm going to hand over to Corey for what we call our rapid fire session.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark. Hi, everyone. All right, Jan, we'd love to get to know you a little bit better. So let's do some rapid fire questions. Number one, what do you love best about the work you get to do?
Oh my gosh. I mean, you're all on this call. I mean, yeah, what I love best is you get to go right at it and connect about what matters most. I mean, it's not, we're not diddling around here. It's getting at the real stuff.
If you weren't doing, I love that. If you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
If I weren't doing this, what would I be doing? I have no idea. I mean, other than hiking, which I will be doing eventually when I'm well again, or maybe painting and writing, maybe. Yeah, that's perhaps. And that's assuming I don't need to make any money.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you took that out of the equation, okay, that's a whole other story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something not on your resume.
What's not on my resume, but absolutely should be on everyone's resume who's had the experience, is parenting. Because and not that everyone needs to be parent by far, I don't believe that, but my kids have been my greatest teachers in every way. I really believe that the universe, God, whatever your belief is, gave me kids to teach me whatever they gave up trying to teach me any other way. It's the only way I was gonna, yeah. So serious learning happening there.
What about a nickname you were known by and where it originated?
Oh, did I have a nickname? I had, when I was a gymnast when I was young and I was pretty tiny, they used to call me Moose. I mean, yeah, they'd say when I was up, they'd all yell, particularly the guys team would yell, "Hang loose, Moose." That was my rah-rah.
Okay. What about your newest go-to app on your phone?
Well, I'm not big on apps, but the one that we've got this stream on a photo album stream called Toots Magoots, which is the app for all the pictures for Toots, who's our grandbaby, my first grandbaby and grandbaby. And I never took pictures or videos of my kids when they were little. I just was too busy being with them and I never did that. And it's like crack cocaine, I swear to God. And I look at these videos, but this is why it's really amazing to me, is that watching videos of him, yeah, he's cute and all that, but all babies are cute. You get to see the development. I can slow it down. I can watch it over and over again. I can see when he's looking at something and how he's trying to mimic it. And it's totally amping my awareness around how we grow and how we develop. You can just see the neurons firing at the age of 6 months, 9 months, he's 1 now. So I'm watching it and I'm just learning how he learns.
Love that, and appropriate for our conversation here in a little bit with you. What are you reading or listening to right now?
Well, I have a confession. It's a little odd in that I think I must have had or have an ADHD thing going on, because I was never able to read as a kid, like really read. I mean, I got through school, grad school, all of that, never finishing a book until I learned that I could read while I was exercising, like on a machine at the gym. And then I learned I actually could read and take it in. So this is information for all of you who have a kid, who might have a kid or yourself, a little ADHD. Put them on the treadmill with a book and see what happens. So anyway, I'm saying that because I've got a bum hip that's being replaced this Friday. and I haven't been able to exercise for 5 weeks. So I haven't read anything except for this one book that I've been slowly making my way through, which is Pema Chodron's newest book, How You Live is How You Die. And I don't know if anyone's read it, but I really recommend it. It's just such a lovely reminder of how every single moment is something to die into in the best way, to really let yourself be in it and experience it and wear it. Those are my words for what she's saying. But great book. I'm not through it, of course, because I'm not moving, but.
And then last rapid fire question, what motivates
you
to get out of bed in the morning?
Right now? Well, nothing, because it's hurting a lot with my bum hip, but what motivates me to get out of bed in the morning is there's always something to uncover. There's always something to learn about, always something to experience in every single moment, and just remembering that and getting up and seeing what that's like. And the other thing is chocolate. I make sure I have a little chocolate with my breakfast. Sometimes I need to get there first, and then I have the awareness, oh yeah, there's so much out there.
And that's a great lead in to our time with you, Jan. So our topic is your mindset in VUCA environments. As a quick reground, we know that VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. A great description of the world the past few years. The other term, and Jan, you and I were talking about this the other day, the other term we're hearing is Bonnie. Brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible. So I'd love to do this with a quick show of fingers. How well does that describe your environment these days? So 5 is very high VUCA environment, high Bonnie environment. 1 is not very much. So quick show of fingers, just to hold them up, whatever it might be. 1 to 5, 4, 5, let's see, 3, 4. All right, average is probably somewhere about a 2, 3. Thank you for that. And then, so that's the VUCA piece of what we're talking about. And then Jan, the other piece, we're talking about is mindset. So if we think about mindset, and we're going to define it as how we're oriented to our life and our work, this shows up in how we think, how we act, how we interact, how we feel. This has been a focus of yours for 20 plus years. You've done research, written white papers, coached leaders all around the globe, worked with organizations. What is it about this topic that's captured your attention for so many years?
Well, at the first level, I'll say it's because it's what gets underneath behavior and how we are in the world. I mean, mindset is what shapes it. So those of us in the development world have always talked about behavior change. We need to change our behavior. And, it's not so easy to change behavior, really. And we may not even need to change behavior as much as understand the mindset that's going on. What is it that's shaping that behavior and why we do what we do? It gets at who we take ourselves to be, who are others, and what we make of the world, and what is ours to do. All of that factors into mindset. And when we have, what's the word I'm looking for? When we are able to begin to explore, unearth, plumb the depths of our own mindset, we have more, I don't want to say it's control, maybe it's more power, more agency. We're not at the mercy of what happens to us in the same way. we're able to shift. We're able to say, oh, I thought that was happening to me. Let me look at what my part in that was. Or what else might I try? So it gives us, we're not as stuck. And we're not as stuck. We're not slaves to it. We're not captives to our experience. So it's very freeing in some ways. And it's also incredibly hard work. So what I also love about mindset is it doesn't speak to just how we think. It gets to so many layers of who we are. You know, if you want one great way to explore mindset is to just tune into how are you holding yourself right now in your body? What's going on for you right now? And what does that tell you about your hopes, your expectations, your fears, what might be going on for you?
Jan, that's exactly what we want to do. And so we want to ask everyone in the audience, take a moment to do exactly what Jan just said. Check in with yourself. What's going on in the back of your mind? What's going on in your body? What are you thinking or more specifically feeling, experiencing within your own context right now?
I encourage you to see how many different ways you're showing up. Your mindset is revealing itself to you.
And once you've tuned into that feeling sense where you're at, just take a moment to just capture that via Menti, if you haven't already. Some words popping in there just to describe what's going on for us at the moment. How are you really? Now, just as people, Jan, are connecting in with how they're going and sharing that via Menti, just the first question to tee up from my end around this VUCA world and mindsets. The exploration question is, what is vertical development and how does it differ from horizontal development? Why is it relevant in this VUCA world that we're describing and sharing here?
I love this question. There's so many different parts to the answer here, or so many different answers. So, I'm going to say that we've made this up. We've made up the idea of horizontal and vertical development as a way to talk about something that's pretty complicated and hard to describe. And so we often talk about, we all know this, horizontal development is learning a skill, gaining knowledge. It's something you put in the cup, as Bob Kagan would say. Some people talk about it. It's like an event. It's like time limited. And horizontal or vertical development being build capacity, we build. How we expand that cup to actually take in more, or it's more continuous and we're always growing and expanding. And the reason why we've called it vertical is because of this notion of we expand our capacity. So it's got this implied sense of hierarchy. You grow your capacity and there's some height to it. The reason why I think that they're both important and we can actually grow vertically when we do horizontal development mindfully. So if you think about taking on a skill, you're taking on a skill, something like public speaking or delegating. That's a skill. You can read a book on how to do it. You can watch a YouTube video on how to do it. You can practice, you can get better at it. If you are mindful about it and say, well, take delegating, because that's a real clear leadership skill. You learn how to delegate. You're going to have these conversations for delegation. You're going to sit down with somebody. And if you notice when you go to do that, that is actually quite hard to do. You go to do it, they don't quite get it right. You get frustrated. You want to give up. You go back, you do it again. You might notice, well, I have to look at how I'm actually having this conversation. What am I bringing to this conversation that might be getting in the way? And oh, by the way, to delegate and have this conversation, I actually had to be willing to let that thing go and trust that they're going to take it forward. That, my friends, is a vertical move, because you're growing your capacity to let go and trust that they're going to take it on. So you might start out with this horizontal journey to get better at that skill. There's an opportunity to go vertically if you take it on mindfully, paying attention to what else has to shift to make it possible. And that's the key question. What else needs to shift to enable that skill to become habituated, to become skillful with it? And vice versa. As we grow our capacity to become more aware, more tuned into our environment, more tuned into the people around us and how we relate to others and the effect of others and the system that we're part of and what's going on inside of us as we grow. So that's vertical, right? We're increasing our awareness. We're increasing our capacity to be with what is and to make some thoughtful, deliberate choices. We become more skillful in how we use our horizontal skills. You might know how to have certain conversations. Well, you may not actually have that conversation once you know more about the environment. You know, you think about what it takes to learn to drive. You become more, you build your capacity to be able to read the road and listen to a book on tape at the same time. Become more skillful. That's growing capacity. And we know enough about brain science now, neuroscience, to know that there's actually neural pathways that make that possible as we expand the way the number of neurotransmitters that are actually activating between the new brain and the old brain and making that possible, so things become habitual and more connected to the limbic system and the musculoskeletal system. So actually we're working. So they're actually interrelated, which doesn't mean it isn't helpful to have horizontal and vertical in our mindset, in the way we conceptualize them. The thing is, you know, they're not exactly separate. We've artificially created that because it helps from a pedagogical point of view. And I just like to use that word pedagogical because it makes me sound like I'm someone who's smart and reads a lot, which now you know I don't. So, so your question about VUCA, or Bonnie, as we said, is a really great one. Because when you think about VUCA, let's just start with VUCA. Volatile, right? Uncertain, complex, ambiguous. None of these feel like we're walking on solid ground. Right? When you hear those words, it's like, whoa, it just feels like it's like that earthquake I experienced when I was in New Zealand. I experienced it. I've never been in one of those before. It was quite interesting. You know, it's like, whoa, what's happening? And if we are stuck or wedded or captive to very few ways of putting the world together, all of that stuff going around us is going to feel much scarier because it doesn't fit in that narrow band or those things that the way we're set. So what mindset expansion does, building or growing vertically so that we have a more expansive way of putting things together, we're not held by set ways of understanding and being in the world, gives us the flexibility, the agility to be able to respond to what VUCA throws at us. It's more about, remember in the days of, and we still talk about it, but it's not, people aren't talking about it so much, but you know, change, sense and respond around change. It's all about how do you sense and respond, sense and respond. It's all about how do we sense and respond? How do you bend your knees and take the moles? How do you respond? And that's what expanded mindset allows us to do, so that we can shift from volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous to having some vision, shifting to a vision that might help us move in a clear direction, right? Uncertainty, I forget what's the uncertainty. What's the U that Barry Johansson talks about? what was it? I'm forgetting now. I'm blanking on it. But there's a U, and C is clarity.
Understanding, I think.
Thank you, David. Yes,
welcome.
understanding. Exactly right. I knew, yes, understanding. What's the questions? What do we need to get at underneath what's going on? What do we need to understand better? How do we slow down to understand? Clarity. Clarity. So here's the dirty little secret. We think that calm, we think that Zen, peacefulness is the antidote to anxiety. But that's not really the antidote to anxiety. That's nice. That's really good stuff. And sometimes we really need it. The antidote to anxiety is clarity. The antidote to anxiety is getting really clear. This is the thing I need to focus on now. And that's why meditation helps so much with anxiety, is because it keeps us coming back to that one very clear thing, which is our breath. And that's where vertical development is so helpful, because it's a framework that offers some clarity about, oh, this is how I can expand my mindset. This next stage gives me some idea about what it would take, because I had no idea. But, oh yeah, maybe if I try starting with a question instead of telling somebody the answer, see what happens. That's a clear thing I can try. And then, right, we've got the A for ambiguity. And the antidote is, what is it? Agility? I think it's agility. How do we flex? How do we try something different? Thank you. I was waiting for you, David, there.
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button.
I got to take you with me everywhere, dude. And how do you flex? Take a risk. Try things. I'll share this little story, and it's in this little video that I did for the Institute of Coaching. So some of you may have seen it. I apologize if you've seen it, but when my youngest, who's now in her 20s, when she was 16, she was a hip hop dancer. And excuse me for one quick second. So she was just on the phone here with some kind of emergency, this kid I'm talking about. So she was a hip hop dancer, and she said, Mom, will you come to a hip hop class with me? And when your 16-year-old says, will you do something with me? You do it. So I go to this hip hop class, and there's mirrors all around, and I'm the only person that's, well over 18 years old or 20 years old in this hip hop class. And I have this picture of myself, who used to be a dancer and a gymnast and all this stuff, that no problem, I can do hip hop, I can move. Looking at these mirrors, I realized really quickly. And my sense of myself was just tanking, just plummeting. And I was really getting bummed. And I was just about to walk out. And my daughter looks at me and she says, Mom, you are so adorable. To which I thought, oh, I'm an adorable 50-something-year-old doing hip hop. I can go with this. I'm going to change this mindset about who I am and what I am in that moment. And all of a sudden I was having a blast. And that's what I mean. So that's just a silly little example, but we can do that all the time. Shift our mindset. That's the agility we're talking about. And the whole world changes.
Love it. And you've been flowing through the questions without us even asking, like by osmosis. So to demonstrate a little bit of agility and move to the next piece, which is just to connect with the audience around where their curiosity and interest lies in relation to this world of vertical, back to the Menti poll. So I'll share it up on the screen again so we've got access to it. And just take a moment to think for yourself, where am I? In terms of the curiosity with mindset. So I'm just going to share screen again as we get flexible with the screen share. Come on. There you go. Hopefully you can see it on your screen now, but you would have seen it on your Menti poll. Give us a bit of a flavor for what's out there, where the curiosity lies, where the interest and the flow goes. And as you look at that, Jan, anything that strikes you or you'd like to comment on as you notice what's coming in
Yes.
on the audience there?
Yes. Great. I want to learn more about mindset and vertical development because newer to this concept. Great. All right. Come on board. I think we're going to be sharing those 2 white papers, right? The Leader's Guide and how to work across different mindsets. So those are 2 places to start. Certainly Nick's papers are just the best. So if you haven't read Nick's articles, white papers, you can get those from the Adaption website, I believe. So that's a really great place to start. If you are a coach, the Institute of Coaching, we just did a series in the fall on vertical development. We're doing one starting actually tomorrow for Asia Pacific, so your time zone on it. So if you know about the Institute of Coaching, and I don't know if you can still sign up, but we've got that going on. There's I don't think there's a lot of really good books out there on it. I think that Leadership Agility is a good book to read on it. And Changing on the Job is a good one to read by Jennifer Garvey Berger. Those are 2 good books. Yes, thank you. Oh, yeah, that's the other book that I was talking about. So I can't see the Menti poll anymore. Where we had some. And I would also clue into the Adaption community here and the VMI. I think the other good way to do it is to take the VMI, try the VMI, Vertical Mindset Indicator. We have public group debriefs now for anyone who takes it, and you can join a public group debrief. If you want to learn more about that, you can reach out to us here. We can connect you with Deepak. He can get you connected. Try it. And you'll get a sense just from doing that about what it is. The other thing that I love here is, I'm going to go to the big one where it says, what was it? 4.1 here is, I want to integrate vertical development into our leadership development programs. Well, the first thing I want to say is do the incubator if you haven't done it, or check out the incubators that Nick and Carl are leading. Here's the thing about vertical leadership development is that you don't have to call it that. Sometimes it helps to not call it that. Plug in some opportunities for people to ask questions of each other, like what would have to shift for you to do that? Or put a session on polarity mapping into your program where they have to learn how to take on the both and. Because most things that leaders are dealing with aren't solutions to be solved. They're dilemmas to be managed. Most things are dilemmas to be managed or not navigated. That's polarities. Once you start learning about polarity mapping, you see them everywhere. And when leaders learn how to navigate polarities, they just naturally go vertical because they have to hold different perspectives to navigate that.
So, Jan, I love that setup because that's exactly what we're going to give people an opportunity to do in breakouts. So Mark's going to put you into breakouts, and we're going to do this one a little bit differently in that you're going to take turns. It's going to go fast. One person is going to share how VUCA or Bonnie shows up in their world. peers, you're going to have an opportunity to ask that person a question to help give them another perspective. You're not giving advice, you're posing a question. And it's exactly what Jan was just talking about in terms of the power of a question to shift perspective, and then rotate. All right. So we'll, I don't know, probably spend 7-8 minutes doing this. And Mark will put us into breakouts. We'll see you back in a few.
There we go. We're back with you, Corey, and hopefully had some great conversations together. So over to you.
Absolutely. So what we'd love to have you do is in the chat, put something that you took away from that breakout conversation. In our breakout conversation, I'll just share rather than putting in the chat. David shared an excellent lesson he got from taking snowboard lessons. So I'll leave it there. Maybe David will put that in the chat. But what did you take away from that? What did you take away from that breakout discussion? What stood out to you?
I love that word, courage.
So as those are coming in, thank you, David. As those are coming in, I'd love to open it up for your questions for Jan. So feel free to come off mute. Feel free to put it in chat. What's something that you're curious about in terms of vertical leadership development that you would love to ask Jan? Question for Jan?
I'll ask a question. Jan, good to see you again. This is Sheila. I'm curious if this is your first foray into vertical development or that kind of vertical mindset into your own healthcare.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
For me? It's not my first. I mean, certainly health, physical stuff is always teaching us stuff. So no, it's not exactly my first. It's probably my most painful.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh at your pain, but just the whole.
No, I appreciate that. It's so immediate. It's kind of like, the way I've managed a lot of both how I think as well as emotion and stuff and stress certainly has been by going out for a really good 10-mile run, right? And it's a good reminder that I'm not in charge. And so vertically, it's always good to build capacity to be with that. And remember that we really are not in charge as much as we think we are. And how do we roll and expand? And I do believe that we can convince ourselves we're thinking certain ways. We can even convince ourselves we're feeling certain ways, but the body doesn't lie. And ultimately, sometimes the body's going to hold us to account. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Did Jay have one in there, the chat? Saw Jay pop up there.
I didn't see a question, but Jay, do you have one?
Well, I do actually. I was really interested, Jan, in your what I took to be kind of a combination of vertical development and horizontal development in a way that I hadn't really thought about before, and the sort of breaking down what might be somewhat artificial walls or constructs or something. And you pointed out that there's an educational value to the distinction, and I appreciate that, recognize that. But could you just say a little bit more about how you see the horizontal development and vertical development sort of melding or merging, or where they overlap and come together?
Yeah. If you think of it more like a spiral, right? So we think about horizontals going this way, and we think about vertical going this way. If you take a skill, and you develop it deliberately, like with deliberate practice, like Eric Anderson's deliberately, so that we're really paying attention to what it takes to do that. It actually builds our capacity because our awareness increases. Oh, in order for me to do that, I actually need to talk to these people. Oh, and that means I actually need to see where they're coming from. So I need to understand their world a little bit better, don't I? Oh, gosh, maybe I need to slow down and figure out what's going on for them. Then I can have this conversation and I can do this. You see what I'm saying? So to really be deliberate about something, you can go in and you can just do that skill, but to do it deliberately actually expands our capacity. And as we expand our capacity of awareness, understanding the systems internally and externally, what's going on inside us and what's going on around us. When we go to use a skill, like what's a skill that you think of it as you develop horizontally?
Oh, just how about running an effective meeting?
Running it exactly, right? So when you become more aware of how you run different kinds of meetings and what the results of different kinds of meetings are and what the environment requires, you will use that skill differently in different situations because your awareness has changed. It's not just, oh, I write an agenda, I hope people, we give people equal amount of time, all those basic skills that you read about. Well, you might need to shift that up depending on the situation. And as you become more skillful, you can do that. Make sense?
Does. This might be too glib, but it seems to me like part of what you're saying is getting better at something helps us get better at getting better. I mean, there's kind of a momentum or something to it, which has a vertical impact.
Yes, it becomes continuous. Yeah, thank you. I like that. Getting better at getting better.
And I see a couple of additional questions from Philippe and Stephen. We're not going to have time to get to those questions, but please, we're going to send out a follow-up email. Feel free, Jan, I'm going to offer you up. Feel free to reply with your question and Jan's happy to get to them. So if those questions or if there are other questions. With that, I'm going to hand back to Mark.
Beautiful. And just to add on the questions, I've popped a couple into the chat. The session today, short, sharp and focused, was about provoking thinking and promoting action. So I'd just love to hear those reflections via the chat about what thinking has been provoked for you. And is there an action that you're triggered to take or some sort of inquiry or curiosity, something you might like to explore further in your own time? If you can pop that into the chat as well. So what's been provoked us thinking and what might be a meaningful action that you can take that will take that forwards for you. Vertically, horizontally, or spirally, any which way you want. To have a little read through. Of course, some of our colleagues' insights, reflections can be really meaningful. Wisdom of the crowd, that collective consciousness that comes through. While you're having a little read in a moment, I'll just share a few things that Jan's already referenced that might be some deeper learning and next opportunities that we can engage with if that's of interest for people, and just making you aware of what's coming up and what's available to support your learning going forward. So hopefully you can see on the screen just that little reference Jan had to the VMI. She's doing a special discount for the group here today, just $99 to get access to a vertical mindset indicator and a digital debrief that gives you a sense of where is my mindset at and what might be some of my growth edges that supports. Just switching between screens to be able to pile on through, he says. Hopefully, here we go. If you're really keen to explore how to provide vertical mindset for your own clients as an awareness tool, and to be able to debrief, coach, and support people in really meaningful ways. Then there's some practitioner programs that have been running throughout the year. Just feel free to check on those different dates and rates for whatever might help and support you as a practitioner if you're wanting to bring it into your business as a coach, etc. And we'll be sending links out as we go through via Roland and in the follow-up note for you. Jan mentioned if you want to design vertical experiences, the world tour that's been in New Zealand, Australia, the US, and is now moving to London in July. Great opportunity through our partnership with Heart Heal to really get into how do I design vertical development experiences for leaders that I can scale, that will really lift that capacity and support the spiral development for the complex VUCA worlds that we operate in. And then there's one more, I believe. It's just around, if you understand vertical but want to be able to facilitate coach groups in a way that leverages vertical experiences, so not design, which was the vertical incubator, but facilitate leveraging vertical principles. There's a virtual program coming up in July, a great chance to amplify and extend any facilitation capability as a leader or facilitator and bring in those principles of vertical to really lift and support people's learning. So just a few things that we can send as links for anyone that's interested in following up on that piece. I'll stop the share. And Corey, I believe you've got one more cracking question for Jan, just to round us off.
I do. Jan, before we let you go, what advice, quote, or motto would you put on a billboard? Advice, quote, or motto?
Advice, quote, or motto. Well, I do have a favorite quote, and it's by Leonard Cohen. It's from Leonard Cohen, which is, until you become the ocean, you will be seasick every day. Until you become the ocean, you will be seasick every day, which goes back to this idea of VUCA and Bonnie. And what does it take to actually surf, to be in it? You know, take the waves and trust that waves are just water. And thank you for your fabulous questions. They were fun. What fun. Thank you. And do reach out, folks. Really. I mean, just, you know, I'm fine. I'm happy to be available. Email me. I think we have a group debrief session too that's available for people who do the VMI coming up, scheduled for later in April or May. So you can do a group debrief if you do the VMI in the next few weeks, in the next few days. I don't know how that is. Yeah, it's good to see you all. Good to see many of you again.
Wonderful. And there's no better way to end than Martin putting in a Point Break quote. Fantastic. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Mark. Thanks, everyone.
Beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Spiral into the future. Enjoy your lives. Have a great Easter break with families, friends, and loved ones.